Welcome, friends and family, to another episode of the Backdoor Cut Show, brought to you by Dash Radio's Nothing But Net channel and the-barnburner.com. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts or other shows. Tonight, you have Zach, Sam, and Mason. We're going to chop it up, talk some Grizzlies. Finally got to see a game this week. Very satisfying game. We'll run through some highlights on that, talk John Morant, Desmond Bain. Do we really need Jonas Valanciunas? I don't know. These things and more we will discuss. We also got a new dynamic on the show. We're missing Rich tonight. So right now we have three married dudes on the podcast for the first time ever in Backdoor Cut Show history, as we got the Chief married last week. Yeah, a little over a week. Can't believe it's been that long. How's it so far?
It's been successful so far. And then Zach actually did he did the ceremony himself, got ordained through the Life Church, was walking around, strutting around the keys with the clergy member tag that he had hanging from his shirt, which is pretty amazing. I hope you keep that. I hope you really have a future in it, man. I got to say, you did really well. And I'd like to think that the podcasting is what caused you to escalate your public speaking game, just the familiarity with the crowd. I was afraid you were going to launch into statistics about the Grizzlies' recent winning streak in the middle of it, just out of old hat. But we did well, man. We're three married guys with a podcast, and we got Grizzlies basketball. It's back. We haven't really talked in a while, but I'm excited to be on. Mason, what's going on with you, man?
Hey, man, just enjoying the longest winning streak in the NBA. Grizz is now at 6 games in a row. It's a good place to be, in 5th in the Western Conference, 8-6, coming off a hot shooting night against the Spurs. Get to play them again on Monday. These baseball-style series. Zach, I know you said you love it, man. How
I'm
you
liking
feeling
it,
tonight?
Dude. I think it's really fun. You get to see, what is San Antonio going to come back with? You can guarantee that they're not going to get surprised like they were this time. I think maybe they didn't know they were coming off a back-to-back also, and it kind of showed in their legs. Grizzlies obviously hadn't played in a while and got a really young squad, so they came out firing, shooting hot in the first half, and really just kept up the pressure the entire game. It was really a joy to see, honestly.
All right, so let's just talk about the game last night against the Spurs. Just some big overarching takeaways I had. I thought early on, both teams, no problem at all finding an offensive rhythm, which was good to see for the Grizzlies team, who in the first 5 games of this winning streak and even before that, they weren't really doing it with the offense. But we just came out firing away. We were 3 for 3. I think we made our first 4 threes maybe. Just hot start, and the same for the Spurs, unfortunately. And then the Grizzlies, midway through the first quarter, Taylor Jenkins started changing the defense. We saw some zone. We saw some pressing there in the first half. And I thought that was a huge part of the game, just us getting settled in defensively, getting some stops and building that lead. What was y'all's thoughts on the first half?
I didn't tune in for the first half, so I came in the second half, which I will tell the story of me watching the game. But Zach, what are your thoughts on the first half?
Yeah, I think so I was a little concerned. San Antonio they shot pretty hot in the first half as well. Grizzlies were shooting, I think, 60+% through both the first and second quarters. And we're only holding, 7-point lead pretty much, which if you've seen a lot of basketball, you know that if you're shooting lights out and you're only up in that marginal range, 7 points in the NBA, absolutely nothing can be erased in a matter of seconds, less than a minute, that can disappear. Then it's going to be a long haul. Like, if teams most of the time end up cooling off in the second half when they shoot that well in the first. And that just didn't really happen for Memphis. Overall shot 48% from 3, 17 of 35. And Sean Coleman of Grizzly Bear Blues had a tweet out today that I thought was a pretty interesting statistic. Said that the Grizzlies have played 2,007 games in the history of their franchise. And before Taylor Jenkins arrived last year, there were only 3 games in which Memphis hit 17 or more threes, which is wild. And then since the start of last year, we've had 6 such games where we've hit 17 or more threes. So we can go back to the question that we talked about a ton, maybe early, mid last season of, how is this let it fly Grizzlies? Is Taylor Jenkins going to be able to change the culture from playing guys in the mud like we're used to? I think that's pretty indicative of the answer is yes. And now we're starting to get some of the guys we'll get into later, but we actually have personnel that can hit those shots. So that goes a long way as well. Without that, yeah, you can have the culture and the mindset of that's what you want to do, but without those guys who can execute on it, doesn't really mean anything. But Memphis does have those now. So Sam, what you got on the second half?
You got a DNP CD from DeAnthony Melton in the last game, which was the Martin Luther King game. The Suns game. A lot of us wonder what was going on. He just come back in COVID protocol. We find out loosely through the media that after a Verno tirade about the media not asking the relevant questions, we find out that it's some sort of team issue. Like everyone speculated, right? He violated some sort of minor rule, like missed a practice or was late or something stupid like that, and just got benched for a game, like for disciplinary reasons or whatever. I guess it's what it seemed like. So you wonder if he's going to come back. Hasn't played a basketball game in what is that, like 3 weeks, roughly, and then comes back and is like one of the best shooters on the team. I believe is like 4 of 7 from 3 in the game, and then slides right back in doing Mr. Do Something things as he's called. So that was really good to see. But my experience watching this game was I was in Nashville for a friend's wedding, and I sent a tweet out, just send a flare up to the Grizzlies Nashville group and say, hey, where can I take in the game tonight? Because obviously the hotels do not have Fox Sports South. So Marriott, get your game together and make it to where I could watch it. And of course, I could watch it on my phone on the app, which is nice. But I wanted to be able to watch it on TV, and I was like, I'll check out a bar and see if like I'm feeling comfortable. So get told to go to this place called Lucky's on 4th, and it's like a little bit away from the downtown area. It's kind of like probably a locals bar, like where they avoid all the Broadway people, kind of where we'd go in like Midtown, for example, to avoid all the people on Beale Street that are tourists. And we go to the bouncer at the front. He looks at our IDs. He says, go on in, order a drink, but you can't stay in there. You got to come out to the patio. He's like, we're at capacity. And I was like, huh. So then I opened the door and I'm blasted with the sound of 100 people in this small bar that's probably the size of Bardock. And it was a fucking rager. And I will tell you that, like, I haven't seen a rager in a long time. And it was bizarre to see it, like, just to see that many people in an area and to hear that noise. The noise, like, just the noise of a lot of people talking.
Activity,
kind of like that slow, small roar. I haven't heard that in 10 months or more, almost a year now. And at the second I heard that, we walked in and I looked at my wife and I was like, the game was of course on. And in fact, as we walked up, some dude was like grit and grind because I was wearing like a Grizzlies mask. So it is a Grizzlies bar there in the Nashville area, which is pretty cool. And it is a cool spot. But at this time in the era of the pandemic, we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we're not comfortable. So we went back to the hotel room and I watched it on my wife's iPad, which was fine, and that's 2021 as we know it. But it was so Nashville, man, like get your shit together. And I'm not surprised because, that's just kind of what's going on over there. But it was wild to see, like, they did not care or there's no protocol or anything. So
is that where
go Grizz.
Do we know if Jonas Valanciunas spends a lot of time in Nashville and frequents Nashville bars?
Man,
we might need to get to the bottom of that.
He would be at this bar if he did. This bar is like literally ground zero for like the 2021 infection. The new strain is brewing at Lucky's on 4th. I'll tell you that. So hopefully the vaccine can tackle it. They just need to like sit outside of there with like a little CDC tent and just inject people as they come out of there. But yeah, so that was a weird way to start my game watching experience. And then the second half cruised along. Bane got in, hit a bunch of threes. We made a ton of threes. I was noticing even the second half, having not seen the first. Patty Mills, I feel like, started to get some run the second I started watching and doing Patty Mills things. Apparently, he's like now the Spurs' leading three-point maker. I think in that game, he hit a three that made him the franchise leader in 3 points made, beating Manu Ginobili. And I was like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I know he's played a decade there, but I feel like not as long as Ginobili or any of those guys. So he's made a ton of threes, and I feel like 57% of them on the Grizzlies. But it was a really fun game, and I think the guys came out. The big narrative was like, how are they going to look? Are they going to be sluggish? Are they going to be tired? Are they going to look like they haven't played basketball in 2 weeks, like a lot of the teams have off the COVID protocol layoff? But they didn't. They looked really sharp. And they were obviously shooting the ball really well. Defense was good. I mean, that I saw. Shout out Dylan Brooks, who I love to clown on. Really did lock up DeRozan and did a really good job on him. I think 5 or 6 points on the night from DeRozan, predominantly guarded by Dillon, who really wasn't having a great shooting night to that point, but still was a +7. Let's put it out by you guys, which means his impact on the defensive end was huge.
+17.
He ended +17
at the time when he was missing shots. I even said, like, he looks, what's he doing? And he was a +7 at that point, even when he hadn't even made any shots. Then he hit 2 like dagger threes after that, and even ended the game even higher. So yeah, he did like a really good job on DeRozan, and like that's what he said he's going to do. Is he's going to be our defender. He wants to be an all defensive player, and so he's doing it. I mean, with his effort. So appreciate that. What other things do we think from the game?
What was it you said about Brooks? He said he shoots every shot like he's 8 for 8 on the game.
Yeah,
I thought that was so accurate.
Crazy amount of confidence, man, and like you got to have that as a shooter in the league, and just you can't remember each missed shot. But yeah, like it's wild how much more effective he is when he like takes good shots. I mean, I feel like he doesn't miss that shit. It's only when he hits when he gets one of those crazy runners going that there might be like 3 to 4 missed shots after that aren't in the flow. But that's just like that's Dillon, man, and like. It really is just kind of you take it with what you go. But Mason, any other thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, if Dillon doesn't have that mindset, who knows if we win that game last night? Because you mentioned he kind of had some offensive struggles, especially late. There was a sequence where he missed 2 threes in a row, and then he had a turnover where he was looking to pass and got hung up and carried the ball. He was trying to hit Desmond Bain, Melton. And then to come back and for his teammates, Ja Morant, the leader of the team, to have the confidence to go to Dillon Brooks, not once, but twice in a row to knock down the shots after Derek White had hit a 3 to bring it within 5. And really, the Spurs were right there. There was plenty of time left, just shy of 5 minutes, I want to say. And then Ja Morant just took over that game. He went to Dillon back to back, and then he hit a floater himself. Then he had a lob to Gorgie to close the game, and Ja was just dominant in that stretch, forced Pop to wave the white flag with like 2 minutes to go. I mean, it was 88 seconds of Ja Morant, highlighted by Dillon Brooks' 2 threes. And that's just a superstar. We'll get into his clutch play in a minute, but he also had another stretch just like that in the third quarter after Dillon had frustrated DeMar. DeMar got his second bucket of the game, and just started yelling at Dillon after he pushes Ja, who's like trying to jump and get the rebound. DeMar gets a tech for pushing Ja and yelling at Dillon, and then he just pissed Ja off. Ja did his signature lefty layup scoop, the one where he doesn't touch it with anything but his left hand. It's honestly becoming a signature play in the NBA. It's a thing of beauty, the way he can just control the ball with his left hand and throw it off the glass, no matter the angle. And then he hit Murray with the spin move, which led Pete Pranica to say that DeJounte Murray needed a GPS to find Ja Morant. He's still looking for him with the baseline fadeaway. And then he hit Kyle for an and one. And then he did like a Jordan-like layup where he went up and came under the defenders and laid it up. And they went into timeout, and you can see him yelling at the Spurs and saying, "Talk that shit now. Talk that shit now." So, and then he said, "Don't wake the sleeping bear," or whatever is what he tweeted today. And I'm pretty sure that was in reference to DeMar DeRozan getting a little too excited over 1 bucket on Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, man, it's exciting shit. Like the clutch thing is like, you can measure it by the whole like last 5 minutes of the game. If you're within 5 points, I think is what's considered an NBA clutch moment. So it has a actual statistic measurable, but just the intangible aspect of like, a guy can take you home. That like if you get beat, it's because you have a better guy on the other team, but you have a guy that's gonna make the right play every single offensive possession. And it's getting to be even on the defensive end of the floor too. It seems like he's focused more on that. So I'd sent a text into our group the second it got to that clutch when they brought it within 5 and Ja had the ball. I was like, I just feel like we're gonna win this game because he's got the ball, and I knew he was gonna play the rest of the game. So. And then what did he do? 3 straight, assist, bucket. And that's just what happens. And
another assist.
Right play and another assist. And just hit the way he carries himself already is like, I'm going to beat you right now. And that's just the way it's going to be. And, good luck. We'll see you in the next game. And that's just for a kid that's like 21, second year in the league, it's just an intangible thing. He's just got it written all over him. The leader, the combination of leadership skills, the swagger, at his position, you don't find it a lot, and it's just sort of like all in one kid.
Yeah, and to kind of add some color. So last night, Memphis ended up winning by 17. So a lot, if you're looking at the technical clutch numbers that you referenced, Sam, a lot of what Morant did not going to be on there because Memphis had pulled away. So those type of things are not going to show up on that very fungible statistic or kind of, filter, if you will. But just to kind of get a little perspective on it, in the fourth quarter last night, Morant, he had 3 points, but he had 5 of his 11 assists in the fourth quarter, and 12 points resulted from those 5 assists. So, I mean, I think he can get to the cup at will, but a lot of times, multiple times, he chose to get to the cup at will, but then use that to get his teammates open, like Dylan Brooks, to get him open to hit the shot. So I think just his wherewithal and vision on the court and his game plan is just, it's next level, and it's something that you just don't see very often.
Well, and it works on a night like last night where we're shooting 48% from 3, which is really the first game we've shot the ball like this. If you look at the season stats, we're 27th in the league in 3-point shooting. Like I said earlier, we have been getting by on defense. So I think that's why it was so refreshing for me to see us come out of an extended break and just shooting the cover off the ball. And kind of, Zach, like you alluded to, what could be with Taylor Jenkins' system, we've got down the points in the paint thing. We had 56 last night, and we lead the league in points in the paint. Now we just got to get down to knocking down the shots at a league average rate from outside. But 56% from the floor overall last night. Didn't have a quarter where we shot less than 50%. You couldn't, and 34 assists, you couldn't have asked for much more offensively. And then honestly, defensively, they buckled down when they needed to get that cushion in the game. And then as the Spurs made their run in the fourth quarter, they buckled down again, got scores and stops to bust it out of that clutch time play, as you mentioned, Zach.
So, yeah, one of the bright spot shooting this season is going to be, in one of the categories Zach alluded to earlier, is the shooting of rookie Desmond Bane out of TCU, who's, I think, shooting 52% right now from 3, leading the league in 3-point percentage at a healthy amount of attempts. Ironically, not a great corner 3-point shooter. Most of his attempts come above the break and in the corner, or not the corners, but the elbows. And he really just can make that shit. However, he's got a verified flamethrower, and it doesn't matter whether he's like standstill or running off a screen. He's an amazing 3-point shooter. And again, I feel like we talk about this every episode, but it was as advertised. It's what he did in college, and it's what he's doing now. And he's getting great shots with Tyus and Josh setting him up. Even Dylan's looking for him too, as Mason said. Guys are looking for him, and he really knows where to move. There's a lot of possessions where, I mean, it's basketball 101, but he really does a smart job of sliding when guys are driving. He slides down and creates space for the pass. He doesn't clog up anywhere, and he's really smart with where he moves. He moves a lot without the ball too, which is what I look for in like a really good shooter, like a Joe Harris type, or a Duncan Robinson, the best shooters in the game. What do we think about Desmond Bane's performance so far? And also, as that relates to, should he get more play time? We're always talking about it. Should Grayson Allen be out of the rotation? Is Grayson's injury now, or his protocol, or whatever's going on with him, is it opening up minutes for Melt and Bane that the fans want to see, and that might actually make us a better team? Or is it just a mirage because we had just a really hell of a shooting night? Mason, what do you think?
I think that's a tough call. For the Grizzlies have been fortunate to see a lot of their wing players be really successful, and that's Grayson Allen, who they were winning games with as he was starting, and he was just really coming on, knocking down shots. His first game back with Ja, he was really, against Phoenix, really effective. But then you got Desmond Bane, who steps in and does the same thing the next night. DeAnthony Melton didn't get on the court versus Phoenix, and I know there's some speculation, but according to Taylor Jenkins, he just wanted to see what the different lineups look like, maybe cutting it one rotation player down. And I don't believe that, but that's what he said. So I just wanted to put that on the record. And then you got Kyle Anderson, who's a semi-wing guy. And it's just like we have all these players who honestly deserve the minutes. You got John Conchar, who comes in and is a rebounding machine, just seems to be in the right spot.
He is.
I do think Desmond Bane has definitely earned as many minutes as possible, but I'm just not sure. And we know Taylor Jenkins and them are not taking Grayson Allen out of that rotation. It doesn't seem that way, at least. And if you look at the numbers, some of our best lineups in terms of net rating, Grayson Allen is in those. He's even in some of our best lineups defensively, which you wouldn't expect. So I understand the call for Desmond Bane to play more minutes, but right now we're just at this situation. It's almost like the Nuggets, last year when they just had all those guards on the wings, and you just let them play, and it's going to work itself out where you figure out who's going to stick around and who you can trade, or maybe you just stay deep. There's no problem in that. That's what has made this team successful, especially in this COVID season, is having all this talent. People step in when others get hurt or go into the protocols.
Yeah, really good points there. So kind of diving into Bane having the highest 3-point percentage in the NBA. So, a lot of statistics can be red herring. So we'll just we'll celebrate them, but take them slightly with a grain of salt. So
are you about to kill our buzz right here?
Just being real with
kill my vibe.
So right now he's second after the games, either last night or tonight after they updated, at 52%. So shooting 52.8% from three is Alex Caruso.
He's shooting the shit out of the ball this year. I haven't seen him miss a three yet. And I've watched like 3 or 4 Lakers games. They're always on national TV.
Yeah, he's made over half of them.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, that's what
is that. What that is?
That's good, dude. But Bane does have
52. I saw all 52.8% of the ones he's made. That's what I'm saying.
He showed out for you specifically.
Yeah.
So Caruso's attempts are lower. He's got 36 total, whereas Bane has 50. Those are both coming out to about 2.25 attempts per game, which I would not call a volume shooter at this point. Next guy on the list is Seth Curry, who has 60 3-point attempts with 51.7%, a little over 4.5 attempts per game. Hasn't played in quite as many games. And then following him are Wayne Ellington and Michael Porter Jr., both over 5 attempts per game, shooting around 50%. Then we get to Joe Harris, who's got 138, so significantly more than any of those guys. He's shooting 48% on 6.5 attempts per game. Damn. So if that's something that's scalable, for him to go from 2.25 up to, really double that and keep anywhere in that volume, I mean, that's elite shooting. Tough to say at this point on the low volume, but obviously that is better than being garbage on your low volume. So we'll just kind of something to keep an eye on and see how it's trending. As far as on the Grizzlies roster, he does have the 4th most 3-point attempts per game behind, obviously, Brooks, surprisingly, Kyle Anderson, and then also Grayson Allen. So kind of just to put it in perspective just a little bit. And to kind of go to your question earlier on the logjam on the wings, if you look at minutes played per game, it's very fascinating. So no one on the team averages more than 30 minutes per game, which makes a lot of what Ja's getting counting stats, not even playing full starter minutes. Same as last year. Memphis hasn't had to play him 35, 36 minutes per game for him to produce and still make an impact. Taylor Jenkins has found other ways for other guys to handle the ball and to take that load off him so he can rest and be a beast in the fourth quarter. A quote by Ja yesterday or today was, this one really got me fired up. I don't know if you saw this one, Sam, but he said, "I'm just seeing red, smelling blood, and I know that's winning time." About the fourth quarter, I was like, whoa, boy. About ready to run through a wall for this kid. I mean, he gets it, and that's awesome. Didn't mean to circle back to him necessarily, but you have 10 guys on this roster averaging between 20 and 30 minutes a game, with only Gorgie and Conchar being the only significant guys averaging less than that. And I think Mason made a really good point, and I don't really have a reason to disagree on the plug and play aspect and the ability that this gives you, and the kind of the advantage that a lot of teams don't have, especially in a season where you're randomly losing people to COVID and you can't really control that. So in order to kind of keep that depth, I think that it doesn't hurt to kind of keep everyone fresh And so far, Jenkins has been oddly successful in finding the hot hand and who to play on which nights, which, I mean, that seems like a really good trait for him to have. So that's been really impressive. But yeah, I think everyone wants to see more Bane. I'd have to look and see where he is compared to minutes-wise, compared to a lot of rookies. Notice a lot of guys, coming off the bench. Some are starting to get more minutes now as we get into the season, and I really wouldn't be surprised to see that from him as well, especially seeing as he's a little bit older of a player.
Well, and the case can be made if you go to the point differential when the guys are on and off the court. Desmond Bane leads the team at plus 12.5. And then it's Xavier Tillman. But then it's DeAnthony Melton, Grayson Allen, John Morant, and Kyle Anderson. So it's like it's kind of like the guys who are fighting for those minutes are
all
making
doing
our
well.
team better. Yeah. So great problem to have. But I think it's important as fans, and as fun as this 6-game winning streak is, and we're expecting to keep winning and to keep getting better, and we can't wait for the players to come back. The organization is going to be super careful. Their goal is not this year what the end game this season is, and they're not going to sacrifice the long-term health of players, whether it's Jaren and Justice or Ja or DeAnthony Melton, for winning one playoff series this year or whatever that may look like at the end. I think it's hard to kind of keep that in the same mind frame as we're seeing this team get better and better. And we're seeing the potential of really what could be. We're seeing Xavier Tillman step into a starting center. Looks like the potential future. And I guess that kind of leads into the trade value and the depth of this team. Do we want to give it up for a big trade for Bradley Beal? Do we want to see what we can get for Jonas Valanciunas? What can we get for them? I before the season, I wanted to stay deep. I'm not for giving up a whole lot. And I think I stay that way. And granted, it's easier to do that because we're on a 6-game winning streak. But how are you guys feeling? Let's just start with Valanciunas, the most recent kind of addition to Grizzlies trade rumors.
Man, he misses one game, and everyone's like, we don't need him. We should just get rid of him.
You say that, but I think you need to take some of the blame for this because you yourself wrote an article before the season started that basically outlined how expendable JV was. So I'm going to hold off on you. Sam, are you ready to get rid of him or you need the big fella back? Jaeger!
What a pass.
Is that Lithuanian for something? I think so.
Yeah,
powerful or something. Some shit.
Something
I did some badass shit. Yeah,
I think it's strength, maybe.
I think that's probably right. Sounds like strength. Yeah, I'm really I'm the trade guy, so I'm definitely more willing to move stuff around. With the assumption being that we get something decent in return, and that becomes the question, right? I don't want to salary dump Jonas, obviously, but if it means even another pick, and I don't know if that's 2 seconds or if you get maybe a first from a good team, a late first for a guy like Jonas. I don't know who would be interested too. That's always what happens when we start concocting these trades is well, wait a minute, is there even a market for this guy? We're coming up with trade machine trades that work in principle that have the salary matches and stuff. But, you have to then think, would that team even do it? And I don't know who's in the market for a lumbering center that plays a really old school game and then would want to start. I don't know if he'd be necessarily opposed to coming off the bench, but I can't imagine him being super pleased with that. I don't know whether he's the kind of guy that comes in and gets really mad about that and is kind of a bad part in the locker room. I don't know. We just never had to deal with that. So I don't know who would even want him, but if we could add another young piece, I think I saw someone do a fake trade with the Hornets in which we got back Jaren's boy from Michigan State.
Bridges.
Bridges. And a guy like that, a young wing, notwithstanding the fact that we seem to be compiling our players' boys. And we either put them down with really the hustle in the case of a few Murray State guys, or we, bring in Xavier Tillman. And I mean, there's something to that for sure. But I would probably do something like that where we get younger and add more guys that are on the timeline of our clearly best players, which are, between the ages of 20 and 22. And that's just like, I think that's a smart move to do now, especially because we aren't trying to win now, right? JV's a clear guy that like steadies the shit. He's a guy that like throw it into him in the post to get you a bucket if you have like an offensive drought. And I think he raises the floor of this team. But he doesn't really raise the ceiling significantly, especially when we've seen such successful minutes from Xavier Tillman and even Gorgie, who kind of plays a more complementary game to Ja. He's a really mobile, looks great this year, moving really well. A really mobile big that can step out and is making like a really good amount of threes this year. Mr. Trebuchet, shout out, and also a really good guy ball accounts both in his community and seemingly in the locker room, like a good vet for the team. All this to say, I'd be open to trading JV if the right package presented himself, but I'm also not like foaming at the mouth to do so. However, next year I will be when he's an expiring because he's coming up, entering his 29th year, I believe, or he's like he's getting close to 30 next year. He will be. Actually, how old is he? I have no idea. Is he?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I thought I remembered the 3-year deal being like basically his prime. Like it was like 25 to 28 or something.
He's almost 29.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought then. Yeah, so then he's approaching the age of 30 when you're a center, a big guy lumbering around, like not necessarily what you want age-wise. So I think you trade him as an expiring next year. But if the right package comes along, totally open to it. Zach, you wrote that article and ruined everyone's perception of Jonas that read it. I mean, what do you think?
Even my own. I was like, he's super.
Brings it up like every week. He's like,
he loves,
because. For the
we
longest
we were all in. Except you,
right?
Because you hated the defense, you hated the drop. But outside, and we all did at times. But yeah, we were all in. Like he saved our season and fun guy. But go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
So when he was super helpful to the team last year, but that wasn't like a great team, right? So what Memphis wants to build a great team, and with some of the pieces not complementary to JV, we've seen. Jaren Jackson, the guy who Memphis has drafted him a while ago. He played basketball a couple times for us. Really good ball player. Hopefully we get to see him again. He and JV, numbers show, eye test shows, they're not really that compatible together. So if we're trying to get, Jaren to reach his full potential, I mean, JV's not part of the long-term plan. He's just going to be aging out of that. And I don't know if this is the year that we're going to trade him. Maybe I could see a team maybe like Brooklyn, who's dismal in the paint. Of course, they just trade away I consider a very good young center in Jared Allen. He might be a piece that could help them. I mean, they don't score in the paint. There's no defense in the paint. But I don't know what Brooklyn has to offer at this point because they just sold the farm. I don't know if he's seen as an upgrade to Boston over Daniel Tice, someone like that maybe this season if for someone who's trying to compete. But next year, I think is really where his value is going to come in on the trade market. And you mentioned Gorgie. How about someone who hasn't played basketball in a while coming in and having a low key really good night last night, 2 for 3 from 3, finishing around the rim. It kind of makes you wonder, why was he out of the rotation for a little bit? But maybe Jenkins truly is just experimenting and looking at the season as a greater body of work of the 70 games and not concerned on a night-to-night basis what's happening and trying to get a holistic picture of what the roster contains.
Well, I mean, major credit to Gorgie being ready when he's called upon, but I don't disagree with Jenkins' decision to have him out of the lineup when he was and to have him back in the lineup when he is now as needed. You're not going to bench JV for him, and I'd rather see Tillman play over him just because he's the future. But Gorgie's obviously been great this year. If we would have had this Gorgie in the bubble last year, we'd have been able to play the Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. But he sucked in the bubble, and we couldn't even play him. So shout out to him. JV, I think the good thing is this year his on and off stats are really good. His defensive numbers are good. And while his individual stats are down and the eye test seems to be down, last year he was getting 20 in 20 games, no problem. And I think we see that when the Raptors were ready to contend or ready to rebuild into another form of contender, they knew JV couldn't do it. I think we saw JV last year on a bad team, win us some games, but and fill the stat sheet. But ultimately, we saw him getting burned on defense. Like we knew his limitations, and this year, and especially having someone like Xavier Tillman who has stepped in so seamlessly to that starting center role, and we've seen what he can do defensively, offensively, and how the ball moves with him. I think this might be the time. While JV's numbers look good on and off the court, teams know what he can do. I don't know who will take him. I'm not sure it's a top tier contender. I know there's been a lot of talk about Charlotte for Cody Zeller, which I'm not sure they would do that. I think Cody Zeller fits more of their team, like defensively and stuff, and he can pass. But I think it'd be one of those Eastern Conference teams who's trying to make the play in, like trying to finish in that 6 to 10, who could use him to make that push. But
what about the Raptors? Ironically,
a reunion that could work.
Aaron Baines, after Mark left, you're seeing how valuable Mark was to that team, and Serge Ibaka as well. So their front court's done. I don't know what their overall plan is, but
they send us Norman Powell or something.
Yeah, or the Terrence Davis, the Ole Miss kid, or just a young piece. And Anunoby is who I'd like, but that's probably not happening because he just got paid, and they really like him over there, it seems like. But yeah, but again, exactly like you pointed out, they're a middling to bottom tier East team right now that's going to be trying to make a push if that's indeed their goal. But you don't it's kind of like when the Spurs sold on Kyle Anderson, and when he was entering his prime. It's like they're an organization that's really smart, or has been in the past. They've made questionable decisions recently, but they're an organization where they decided they didn't like what they saw from Kyle Anderson and traded him, or it didn't sign him. And then, of course, the Raptors do the same thing for JV. So you kind of I always question when smart organizations cut ties with a guy when he's about to enter his prime. That means that they don't think he has what it takes to make them a winning organization, that they're willing to give him up for Marc Gasol, right? It wasn't like we traded him Kawhi Leonard. And so I don't know. I've always questioned about that. And Tillman, man, imagine just close your eyes, guys, and just imagine a lineup of John Morant, some combination of DeAnthony Melton, Desmond Bane, and Dylan Brooks at the 2 or 3, Jaren at the 4, and Xavier Tillman at the 5. That's kind of that's exactly where we're wanting to go, I think, in the future. And I think the sooner we start playing the guys together and developing that rapport, the better, man. We need to get those guys some minutes and get those guys some continuity.
Yeah, so a big topic has been basically we had 2 weeks off and there was no progress, according to Taylor Jenkins. Actually, the progress was stunted for Justice Winslow and Jaren Jackson. And I know you guys are kind of down on the injury situation. So I'd like to propose an optimistic take first before we get into the pessimistic ones. What if these guys were so close to returning that they were in the conditioning phase of, just having to get up to 100%, as close to game conditioning without playing in games as possible? And because the facility was closed for that week and a half, 2 weeks, they were unable to properly NBA-style condition, and that's why they're not back. Maybe they're fully healed, but their heart rate's not right. Y'all buying that?
I'm kind of over being pessimistic about it, bro. I'm here for the positivity. I just got married, feeling good. I had a great weekend in Nashville, barring the COVID scare, and in the bar. And now they're great. They're doing well. They're going to be back soon. It's the operative word. The Jaren, I get because that's the total organizational thing of let's be really careful. We're even winning games now, but it's clear that this year is not the year. Even if they make the playoffs, there's no fans. It's not even a year where they're going to make back some revenue necessarily. So it's it's not necessarily the year to push for that. And so I understand the long-term Jaren thing. The Justice thing is more concerning to me because there's no surgery or timeline there. And then also, and I've said this before, but we got a team option on him next year. So we could cut ties with him if he's truly just can't play meaningful minutes, and we know it. Then we could cut ties with him, or pick up his option and try to trade him or do something. But the point being is, I'd really like to see what we have with Justice, and it just makes no sense to me that we haven't unless he's truly damaged goods. Particularly with all the injuries that were happening, stacking up earlier in the season. Now maybe you can still rest on your laurels. We got a lot of healthy wings. We got a logjam. But we'll see. Maybe that's the case, Mason. I'm hoping that they just got to ramp up the cardio. Get on the elliptical or the Peloton and get going, my dudes. Zach, are you optimistic, or you think that you're never going to see Justice Winslow in a uniform?
So Jaren, I thought it was kind of funny that on the broadcast, Pete and Brevin were trying to dance around these hoops with their words about what the guys were doing in the downtime. Oh, they're not practicing all together. Brevin was even like, there's a lot of good hoops outside in the city of Memphis where they're getting their shots up, joking around, which I don't even know if you can play on the public courts in Memphis yet. I don't know. There were people playing down the street from me, which I got a public hoop near my house, which I was happy to see that today. I digress. But then Jaren tweets out something today of they think we haven't, or don't tell them we've been hanging out, and then like a whisper emoji. So like,
or we're good because we hang out. Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
Dude's been doing stuff.
I think he was playing. I think he was playing on the whole like they like each other and that's why they're good.
Yeah, but they still
say that a lot,
doing stuff.
They do. Yeah, but I think like they probably get tired of hearing that they're not good because they're good fucking basketball players. It's just because they like game together or like develop SoundCloud mixtapes together. It doesn't mean that they're going to be better on the court necessarily. It helps a little bit, but that's become a narrative, I think, that undercuts their basketball skill. So I imagine that would piss me off if people said I'm a good lawyer because I hang out at the firm. I like go to happy hour. I'm like, all right, maybe it's just like my skill. You know what I mean? Like, so I get that, but I don't know. Mason, do you think when will we see these guys? I mean, is it? At what point are we like, now's the time? Now's the safe time. Like, I don't know. I just
think
don't.
It could not even be the whole season, honestly.
Well, let me ask this question too: Is it more likely we see them because we're winning? Is it less like we see them because we're winning, or is the winning streak and like this prognosis of the season so far have nothing to do with what is going to happen with them?
I would say it likely doesn't matter, but if I had to pick which way it would go, I would say winning just delays their return even more. Because the fans are satisfied and they're not calling for everything. But go ahead, Zach.
And Jenkins is getting to see all these other guys. Like we're able to figure out hopefully who's going to remain on the roster in the years to come. Which of these wings we're going to be able to keep. Who do we want to keep? So we're getting more run out of them because when Jaren comes back, he's going to be taking minute.
Yeah,
he's going to be taking 25, 30 minutes from someone.
I feel you, but then we also have the Dylan Brooks effect where these guys might be getting more shots than they deserve, and we ultimately want to see how they fit with Ja and Jaren because that's the ultimate end game. But none of us know. The Grizzlies do a great job, honestly, of keeping things super tight in-house. There's not rumors anymore abound about what's happening in the locker room. People leaking things to their friends who are reporters or agents leaking things. So compared to where we were 3 years ago, I'll take the secrecy and the wins and the hitting on draft picks compared to rumors getting out about how our locker room is basically hating each other and no one's getting along and who's fighting who and all that. So it could be a lot worse. But to go back to some fun stuff, let me tell you a stat that I found that was really good. Grizzlies players who in the steal ratings are in the 80th percentile or better. Now we got a bunch of them. Dylan Brooks, 83rd percentile. Brandon Clark, 80th. Tyus Jones, 92nd. Xavier, 97th. Gorgie, 96th. Melton, 96. Jitty, 100th percentile. The boys have been D'ing up, and that's ultimately how we've been so good so far this season.
Yeah, that takes buy-in, that takes collusion together to create a defensive scheme because like NBA defense has to be 5 men on the floor doing, everything together. And there's been a lot of possessions where you notice the straight up on the string yo-yo effect of getting out and running shooters off when the ball's changing sides. NBA offenses are always so smart with moving the ball. You don't see those stagnant college possessions. And even still, you see our guys are getting out really quickly. It's active as hell. And we get so many deflections, man. We're like top 3, I believe, in deflections at this point. With guys like Melton out there sticking their long ass arms into the fray and just Yeah, Kyle too, and they're really smart. I mean, the second that first deflection happens, even if we don't get a steal off that, it immediately just creates disarray, and it's fun to watch too. It's a fun defense. It's not necessarily we have one lockdown wing defender and it's like a slogging style. It's like, I mean, it's active athletes playing defense, which is cool as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jenkins, I think this year has done a great job of switching defenses. We've seen zone, we've seen press and pressure. So shout out to him. You know, Zach talked about the offense kind of taking place, just needing some 3-pointers to fall. But he's done a great job.
Yeah, the guys seem to like him too. They're bought in. I mean, it's like the beginning of a great culture, right? Like a guy that could coach here for 20 years. I mean, like and that's exactly the hire they were intending to make, was the next Greg Popovich or the next Rick Carlisle or whatever. We'll see. I mean, all it takes is like a losing streak, and then we'll be on his ass,
pissed off, and
it's all about the players too. They're the ones doing it. They're the ones executing his plan, whatever it is, and they're hooping. So you don't want to take away from that. But all the things are firing right now, and it's just, you really love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Ja, he's 92nd percentile in effective field goal percentage, 97th from 2-point, and only 11th percentile from 3-point land. So he's not shooting the ball well from deep, but he gets to the rim at will. And I know at the rim he's in the 82nd percentile in accuracy, and in the mid range he's 95th percentile. So he's getting buckets with the best of them. And you add that into being one of the best passers in the league. And then Tyus Jones coming in when he's not in and getting 8 assists and knocking down floaters. Like, the point guard play has been absolutely tremendous, which kind of fuels Jenkins' whole offensive get out and run system.
Yeah, Stone's been hooping too. It's good shit. Do you guys want to move into prognosis of the upcoming week of games?
Yeah, what we got? We got Spurs Monday, right?
We got a lot.
We got this as
Come on, KG. This is no different than that. This is me. All right? I'm not a fucking athlete. This is my fucking way. This is how I win.
All right, this is how I win. As we look at the week going forward and just make some educated guesses on the way the games are going to go. Just a simple pick 'em of wins and losses. This next week we have 4 games, so it's actually a lot of games cranked into this week. Unrelated, no makeup, so it's just happened to be a busy week. Tomorrow we have the Spurs. Tomorrow being Monday, we're recording Sunday evening. You should hear this podcast Monday morning, so it'll be tonight when you listen. Spurs at 7:30 back in Memphis, or actually it's still in San Antonio, right? I think they're still in San Antonio. So at Spurs Monday, Mason, how do you feel that game goes?
I think that's going to be complete opposite of what we saw yesterday, except I think the Grizzlies are still going to win. I think it's going to be a defensive battle.
You still think the Grizzlies win? That's a W. Then the Grizzlies travel over into Indianapolis to play the Pacers, the team I hated on the most for the season. Now the team that I ironically love to watch the most on League Pass. Oh, how the turntables. They face off against the Pacers at 7 p.m. Zach, how do you think that game goes? That's a back-to-back, second half of a back-to-back.
Is Sabonis still out?
I do not know.
Okay, check that one real quick. That's a
it don't matter because Xavier Tillman's going to shut him down anyway.
Hell yeah. And the Karis LeVert, of course, is not playing. He just had a successful surgery on a cancerous tumor, I believe, on his kidney. So shout out to him. Prayers up. Hope he's recovering well, but will not be in this game. They obviously traded Oladipo for him. So that's another crucial scoring presence that they don't have.
Yeah, they ended up losing a lot, but in the end, could be a life-saving trade for LeVert. So things worked out. But
yeah, no kidding, man.
India's feeling the effects of losing Oladipo. So Zach, is your boy playing? I know you've been high on Sabonis and the Pacers in general.
Yeah, it looks like he's not on the injury report, at least on what I just looked at. I think that coming off the back-to-back, traveling, haven't really had that, been off for a while. That could be a tough one for the Grizzlies. So could see that being a random end to the winning streak.
All right, and heading back home Thursday, a day off Wednesday, and Thursday the Rockets come to town. John Wall, Boogie Cousins, and the resurging Depot on the Rockets. They're kind of a frisky team. I think they're 500 now. They were 9-9. Weird team, friskier than everyone thought. Christian Wood's hooping. Detroit, what a fucking crazy move to not pay him some money, or maybe he just wanted to leave. I don't know what happened there. But Rockets are frisky. How do we feel about the Rockets at home, Mason?
Yeah, and we'll see how the beginning of this week goes, but they have the second longest winning streak in the NBA to the Grizzlies first. We're at 6, they're at 5 games. I think that's going to be a chippy one. John Wall and Ja Morant, I can see them getting into it, like John Wall trying to hold his ground as one of the elite point guards, and Ja Morant trying to tell him, no, man, you're a has-been. This is my floor now. I think the Grizzlies will win that game and kind of set a tone, but I think that's going to set a tone for some chippy games throughout the season with the Rockets.
Yeah, we haven't seen since Ja's been back him have another, a 40-point outbreak or those first 2 games. I know he still has mentioned his ankle. He brought that up in a recent game. He had a kind of it wasn't a missed dunk per se, but it was a ball he usually probably would have flushed very easily that he didn't manage to put back. And he tweeted, once I get this ankle right, then, I'll hammer that motherfucker or whatever he said. Point being is that his ankle, he's still thinking about it. So
that's going to be 2 of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Since they traded James Harden, the Rockets have been the best team and the Grizzlies are right there at 3rd. So should be a defensive battle.
So we think that's a great game to watch. I'm excited for that one, but Mason thinks that the Grizzlies pull out a win and ride the wave. Zach, what do you got?
On the Rockets, have you guys ever listened to or watched on League Pass with the Rockets announcers?
They're dope.
Really? See, I listened and I could not get on board with it, man. It sounded like
yelling the whole time.
Do what?
I'm thinking of the Cavs. I'm sorry.
No, they sounded just discombobulated, and one of the guys is calling people the wrong names, and the other one's correcting. It just sounded like 2 old dudes just sitting in their garage or something. I mean, that's like what I'm doing, but mustn't probably not having.
You're an old white guy sitting in his basement. But yeah, no, that's.
It was a weird one. It was a weird one. So check it out sometime. Let's see if I'm crazy or I just caught him on a bad night or something like that.
Speaking of old announcers, the Grizzlies then play another day off on Saturday night. The Grizzlies play at New Orleans at the Pelicans. First game this season versus the Pelicans, and then a reeling Pelican squad, who I think are 7-11 now, picked up a win against I think Chicago or a pretty terrible team and have really underperformed. Everyone is kind of doing the sky is falling thing there now. They seem to be sellers right now. They're going to trade JJ Redick and some of their other vets, and they don't play any defense despite Stan Van Gundy being there. I think there's questions of whether their guys are buying in for Stan. Pretty tough scenario there, but the Pelicans always beat our ass. So what do we think about that Pellies game?
I mean, I'm not picking against the Grizzlies when it comes to the Pelicans. I know in my heart of hearts, Memphis needs to win these games against the Pelicans and then in the future going forward. And I think we have them right where we want them. Memphis is hot right now. Pelicans have a lot of drama going on. They're not playing up to their full potential. Just got to keep guys like Brandon Ingram, in check. Obviously Zion, contain them a little bit, but I think our deep roster is going to really benefit us in a game like this.
So is that an official backdoor cut prediction of 3-1 on the week?
I believe so. All things considered, which is pretty bold, man. But
so we're feeling ourselves.
That would take us to 11-7, I believe, because we're currently 8-6, 11-7. I mean, we'd be sitting pretty with that type of record.
Yeah, if they keep playing like they did, obviously they're not going to hit shots, but if they keep playing like they have in the Suns game, kind of finding creative ways to win and D'ing up like that, and the sky's the limit at that point. I mean, if you could get Jaren back too, I know this is all conjecture, but if you get him back for that Pellies game, I don't know. I could see would love to get him back for a game like that. Not that he'll be anything of what we can expect. He won't be even up to 100%, but it'd just be nice to see him back in a uniform and playing basketball again.
Yeah, that would be a sight for sore eyes, man. For sure.
All right, so is that our one hope for this week? I was going to ask you guys one thing you want to see this week from the Grizzlies as we have about 30 seconds to close it out. Sam, what you got?
Jaren Jackson Jr. playing basketball again.
Zach?
Oh. This is a lot of pressure, I feel like. I want to see Morant have double-digit assists every game.
While the injured players coming back are the top of the list, I'll go Ja 40-point game. Let's get back to scoring, Ja. But
we need to get that scoring average up, man. Like as the All-Star games coming, all the voting's happening. We'll see if he can get that popular vote.
So easy to forget he's only played like 5.5 games this season, and we're still
kind of
doing
bullshit if he gets in. But oh well, it's a weird season. Like you can't blame him for the COVID layoff.
I mean, we got a while. We got a while to go before voting ends, so hopefully he'll make his claim by then. Vote Ja Morant for NBA All-Star on Twitter, on NBA.com, wherever you vote. But we are predicting the Grizzlies to go 3-0 this week, baby. We're staying hot. But we'll talk to y'all next Monday Night Dash Radio. Thanks for having us. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Backdoor Cut Show. We gone.